What's poppin', everybody? This is the Cartoon Kid Ray Rollins, and on the channel today, I will be talking about Infinity Train Book 3, Episode 6, The Campfire Car. And as per usual, before I get into breaking this episode down, I gotta give y'all that episode breakdown. So, this episode picks up where episode 5 left off, and I'm just gonna jump in and say it, where Simon ends up killing Tuba. That's where this episode picks up. So Grace, and I guess you could say Simon too, but more so Grace, is dealing with the aftermath of it. And the aftermath is Hazel having a freaking panic attack, or crying fit, if you want to call it that. So as Hazel's going throughout her little crying fit, she starts growing somewhat of a shell, which might be a little metaphoric for something, who knows. It might be discussed a little bit more down the line. But she starts growing this little shell around her body. And she basically questions Grace. She's like, yo, you guys hated Tuba because she was a trained person, basically. And you guys are probably going to hate me too because I'm a trained person. Which, who knows, she might be because she's growing the shell. I'm going to be honest, I have no clue because as far as I checked, real people don't grow shells. So she might be a trained person. Who knows? But Grace basically tells her, yo, hey, you got to stay calm. We can't have Simon finding out about this. So Grace, in a sense, is being that motherly or better yet, sisterly figure. Being somewhat sympathetic towards Hazel and the little trouble that her friend Simon caused, which I gotta give her huge ups for. So they go back to Simon, and obviously they have a little discussion where Grace basically tells him, yo, you don't do no shit like that ever again without taking orders from me. Basically putting his ass in his place, which, like I said, huge thumbs up for Grace on handling that business. So Hazel basically tells Simon and them that, yo, I want to do a funeral for Tuba. And Simon's like, why do you want to do a funeral for Tuba? She wasn't even real. She's not a real person. She's just a null. And Grace, once again, steps in, puts Simon in his place in a really respectful way, I might add, and basically tells him, like, yo, it would be better for her to have this little funeral so she can get over this little trauma that you basically caused, because it wouldn't be a good idea to assimilate her into the apex as she's grieving over the loss of a knoll. So long story short, they travel throughout this car trying to find a proper burial site, even though they don't have a body, but they're trying to find a proper memorial site for Tuba. Simon, of course, is being the pessimistic asshole, not giving a damn about Hazel and her feelings, and he just gets fed up with the whole thing. He's like, yo, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to be waiting by the exit, and you guys can come back to me when you guys get everything all taken care of. So Grace and Hazel end up finding Tuba's memorial site, which happens to be a tree. And they do the little funeral, which I'll go in a little bit more detail on in a little bit. But they do the whole funeral, and after that, they end up heading back to the train where they think the apex are. So they made it home to the apex. However, they're not there. None of their kid army is there. But as soon as they get in the car and they realize that, yo, Apex isn't here, where are they? One of the little train doors opens and out comes Amelia. Big bad boss from season 1, man. That's where the episode ends. And I gotta say, what a way to end it. My initial thoughts were all over the place. I'm not even gonna lie to you. The first thing I thought was like, yo, it's dope as hell to see Amelia after season 1. Me and my buddy Alex were talking about it when we were reviewing season 2. And he always was talking about it would be cool if they did a season on Amelia, giving her more of her backstory. Giving more of her backstory and how she got on the train and how she created the train and whatnot. But while we didn't get a season of her, we got a season of her group, the Apex. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. I'll talk about that later on in the video, but I got to talk about the episode. Now, obviously, I gave the summary, which pretty much detailed the episode in its entirety. However, the main things that I really want to talk about is the funeral for Tuba, obviously. As I said in my previous review for episode 5, Simon is a complete asshole, a jackass for what he did to Tuba. I'll be honest with you. And he deserves all the hate he gets. Now, if you didn't hate him at the end of the episode 5, you're definitely going to hate him at the end of episode 6. And the only reason why you wouldn't hate him is because you have no heart. The one thing that this episode really accomplished is showing that Grace is not really a bad person, at least to me. Obviously, she's in with the wrong crowd. She's in with the apex, okay? She's not one of the most greatest characters from the cast, obviously going based off of her morals. But this episode kind of humanizes her a little bit. I'll be honest with you. Not a little bit, but a lot of it. Grace isn't a bad person. Grace has empathy. Grace has sympathy. And Grace is able to show compassion, even though she doesn't want to. And she has feelings. So, as I stated repeatedly during the summary, this is shown by her basically putting Simon in his place repeatedly on a whole bunch of different instances. Obviously, the first being checking his ass for killing Tuba. Like, don't be doing no shit without direct orders from me. Don't take no drastic action like that without orders from me. And the second, but most important, was when she basically allowed Hazel to have her funeral for Tuba. Now, let's get to the funeral portion. This has to be one of the best portions of the episode. Like, this, without a doubt, made me feel some type of way, man. It made me, I wouldn't say tear up, but it made me feel a little bit emotional. Because you have this, as I said in the last episode review, defenseless kid on the train. The absolutely defenseless kid who needs to have that protective adult figure to look out for them. And that obviously was Tuba for Hazel. And to have Simon take her away from her is just absolutely heartless. But this funeral scene really showcases how much Hazel cared for Tuba and how much of an impact that Tuba had on Hazel. In so many words, Hazel basically said Tuba was that mother figure for me. She made me feel happy, she made me feel safe, and I'll always thank her for that. She feels like she left, or rather gave up her kids to actually look after her. Who knows if her kids died? That really wasn't explained, but we can infer that they did die because Hazel said that she's with them now. So, who really knows? But the main thing is, Hazel hopes that she's happy in her afterlife, and she's super thankful for Tuba looking out for her. So we know how much of effect that Tuba had on Hazel, and Grace gets to see this firsthand from Hazel's eulogy to Tuba. And this is where you get to see it really take effect on Grace, because she's actually starting to see the severity of what Simon did by taking away Tuba from Hazel. And she starts crying. Hazel then basically tries to convince her to give her eulogy on Tuba, which she tries to come up with some stuff on the fly too. And she ends up basically, I wouldn't say bawling, but she ends up crying a good bit while talking about how much Tuba cared for her. And I gotta say, this moment is setting up for a turning point for Grace, because she's starting to realize, at least from her actions, we can infer that she's starting to realize that Knowles aren't bad people. Because Tuba wasn't a bad person. Tuba looked out for this kid. She even said Tuba was nice to her. And by her basically crying during her eulogy, or hell, even her giving her a eulogy to begin with, even though she didn't want to, is kind of setting up for a turning point. Simon, obviously, he's going to need a little bit more work. And hopefully Amelia will beat some fucking sense into his ass. But you know what? As long as he gets there, that's all good. So to get to my review portion of this episode, I'm not going to sit here and say this was one of the most monumental episodes out of the series, but it's definitely a good one. It's a good one because it's a tearjerker. As I said, if you watch this episode and you don't end it without feeling some type of way, then you are a cold-hearted motherfucker. Because at least for me, I'm not saying I'm the biggest macho man in the room, but it had me feeling some way for sure. This series, or this season rather, is getting absolute dark, especially with these last 2 episodes, which is, I guess you could say, a good thing. Maybe, hopefully, it gets a little bit darker. Hopefully, we get to see the death of Simon. That would be good. But either way, this episode most definitely was a tearjerker. We get to see that Simon is the cold-hearted motherfucker of the leadership of the Apex, and that Grace has a little bit of compassion in her heart. As this season progresses, we get to see her compassionate side, and we get to see it in full effect here in this episode, as she's basically doing everything in her power to comfort Hazel. Hell, even after Simon basically tells Hazel that, yo, you shouldn't be having a funeral for this creature or whatever, because it's not a real person. Hell, you don't even have a body to bury. And Grace was like, come on, Simon, she's 6. And it's just like, okay, all right, Grace, I see you. You have some compassion. And that was the whole focal point of this episode, man. And at least in my opinion, that was the main objective. To show that Grace has a compassionate side. She has at least one compassionate bone in her body. And the big display of that was when she was crying and showing her emotions during Tuba's funeral. So, I gotta get to some more important business here, and I gotta talk about Amelia and how she's gonna play a role in the ending of this season. Now, the return of Amelia can mean a few things. We obviously know that she had a change of heart after season 1. Our good homie, Original Tulip, basically tried to set her down the right path, which hopefully is happening. And to see her appear in this episode can only mean one thing for the ending of the season, and that is she hopefully will end up getting these kids off the train. At least you would assume, right? She created the train, she founded it, so she knows 100% how it works. So my main prediction is that hopefully she ends up telling them the truth about this train, so they can end up hopping off of it and end up coming back to the real world and being with their actual families. So my theory is that within these next 3 episodes, since Grace is already getting her number down, she should have no problem getting off of there. At least you would figure, right? Simon, that might be a totally different story. Who knows? But with these next 3 episodes, Amelia hopefully will tell them how the train works and everything that they gotta do to get off of it. She'll explain that they won't disappear if their numbers reach 0. They'll be sent back to the real world. But this is Infinity Train, and you already know, man, they end their seasons off with a big bang. So it's not going to be something as simple as that. Maybe it is, who knows? But it's going to be hopefully something more action-packed and more monumental than that. My good buddy Alex says that this had to be one of his favorite seasons out of the entire series. So I'm hoping that this is better than season 2. Do I think it's personally better at this point? No. I can't say it is. I'm not willing to give it the edge over season 2. Is it more emotional? Nah, I can't even say that, because even Tuba's death scene didn't even top the scene in season 2 where Metal Tulip is separated from Jessie and she had to deal with the Flex on her own. That does not compare by no means. But this episode, I'm going to have to give a simple 7 out of 10. This was definitely a tearjerker, I'm not even going to lie to you guys. But it's not something that made me be like, oh man, this is the greatest episode in the world. Nah, it got me a little emotional, which is good. Because the main thing that'll let you know that you're watching something good, or say if you're reading a book or listening to a song or whatever, the main thing that lets you know it's a good song, book, or good art piece in general is if you have some emotion towards it, which I did with this episode. So the writers did a fantastic job with this one, and they get a huge thumbs up from me, man. You made me believe that Grace has a human bone in her body, okay? She's not just some heartless bitch who leads a congregation of evil little miscreants. But that about does it, man. My name is Ray Rollins. I'm the Cartoon Kid, and this has been my review for Infinity Train Season 3, Episode 6, The Campfire Car. I give this one a nice 7 out of 10, man. Y'all know what to do. Tell me if you like this episode, tell me if you hate it, and tell me what you would rate it down in the comments box below. And until next time, I will see y'all when I see y'all. Peace out, everybody.